After 75, 99% of deaths happen. For these 5 reasons how to avoid them and stay healthy. It is a striking reality that a staggering 99% of all deaths occurring after the age of 75 can be attributed to merely a handful of identifiable causes. Many individuals harbor the misconception that passing away in one's advanced years is an unavoidable and entirely natural consequence of reaching a certain age. However, a deeper examination reveals a more nuanced truth. The vast majority of these fatalities stem directly from risks that are, in fact, largely avoidable. Risks that, regrettably, are frequently overlooked or outright ignored until their cumulative impact becomes tragically undeniable. The inherent challenge lies in the timeline. By the point at which most individuals begin to truly grasp the gravity of their deteriorating health, their physical condition has often already reached a critical juncture, severely limiting their options for recovery or intervention. Yet, an empowering truth exists. If one is equipped with a clear understanding of these pervasive dangers, now, it becomes entirely possible to proactively implement robust protective measures, thereby extending one's lifespan and enhancing overall vitality in ways previously thought to be unimaginable. This comprehensive exploration will meticulously uncover the 5 primary drivers of mortality for individuals beyond the age of 75. The very factors responsible for nearly every fatality observed within this demographic. While some of these leading causes might seem intuitively obvious, others could prove to be quite surprising, challenging preconceived notions about aging and health. Nevertheless, one certainty prevails. Acquiring this crucial knowledge represents the indispensable initial step toward effective prevention. These are not merely abstract statistics. They embody real lives, impact genuine families, and necessitate tangible choices that possess the profound potential to dictate the trajectory between a life burdened by chronic health struggles and one characterized by sustained vigor, independence, and profound fulfillment. It is imperative to understand that these 5 causes are far from inevitable. On the contrary, through the adoption of even seemingly minor yet profoundly meaningful adjustments to daily habits and lifestyle, countless individuals have successfully and significantly diminished their personal risks, maintained their independence for considerably longer periods, and, in many instances, added not just years but often decades to their lives. The deliberate decisions made today possess the extraordinary power to fundamentally shape how robust, active, and self-sufficient one remains in the forthcoming years and decades. The preeminent health challenge, and indeed the leading cause of death for individuals surpassing 75 years of age, remains cardiovascular disease, commonly referred to as heart disease. Despite its pervasive nature, a striking number of people remain astonishingly unaware of the substantial degree of control they actually possess over their cardiac health. The heart, fundamentally, is a sophisticated and tirelessly working muscle. Like any other muscle in the human body, its strength and efficiency are either preserved and fortified through appropriate care and consistent attention, or it gradually succumbs to weakening as a result of years of sustained neglect and insufficient support. A particularly insidious aspect of heart disease is its often silent progression. The subtle, warning signs frequently go unnoticed or are misattributed until irreversible damage has already been inflicted. Many individuals, as they age, mistakenly attribute feelings of general slowing down, pervasive tiredness, or experiencing shortness of breath with minimal exertion as mere unavoidable components of the natural aging process. However, in stark reality, these seemingly benign symptoms can serve as critical indicators that the heart's strength and functional capacity are not what they once were, a development that absolutely warrants vigilant attention and prompt investigation. Among the most significant and stealthy contributors to the development and progression of heart disease is persistently elevated blood pressure, a condition frequently dubbed the silent killer. Over extended periods, high blood pressure imposes an immense and relentless strain upon the arterial walls, forcing the heart to labor far more arduously than it was ever designed to, constantly fighting against increased resistance. The truly perilous characteristic of high blood pressure is its asymptomatic nature. There is typically no accompanying pain, no glaring or obvious symptoms, no internal alarm signaling the urgent need for intervention until a catastrophic event like a heart attack, or a stroke abruptly forces the issue to the forefront. This explains why so many individuals over 75 years old are suddenly confronted with an emergency hospitalization, left bewildered as to how they reached such a critical state when they felt perfectly well just days prior. Another formidable culprit in the battle against heart disease is a consistently poor dietary regimen. Decades of consuming highly processed foods, an excessive intake of sodium, and unhealthy trans and saturated fats insidiously exact their toll on the cardiovascular system, leading to the gradual accumulation of plaque within the arteries and a corresponding reduction in vital blood circulation. Moreover, a crucial insight that often eludes public understanding is that heart-healthy eating extends far beyond simply avoiding bad foods. It equally, if not more importantly, encompasses the deliberate and consistent consumption of the right foods. The heart, as a muscle, requires specific and adequate nutritional fuel to maintain its formidable strength and optimal function. If daily meals are chronically deficient in these essential heart-healthy nutrients, the cumulative damage can manifest itself far more rapidly and severely than most people would anticipate. Compounding these issues is the pervasive problem of physical inactivity. The human heart, and indeed the entire circulatory system, is inherently designed for movement, not for prolonged periods of stillness. When physical activity is significantly reduced or altogether ceased, blood circulation naturally slows down, muscles throughout the body weaken, and crucially, the heart itself is deprived of the essential exercise it requires to maintain its strength and efficiency. This does not necessitate becoming a marathon runner, rather engaging in consistent and appropriate forms of physical activity that are suitable for one's individual capabilities, be it regular walking, gentle stretching routines, or even simple chair exercises, can dramatically enhance the heart's pumping efficiency and profoundly mitigate the risk of developing heart disease. The most profound and widespread error people make is succumbing to the fatalistic belief that heart disease is simply an unavoidable destiny. They might recall relatives who suffered heart attacks or resign themselves to the idea that such conditions are merely an inevitable part of advancing age. However, the unequivocal truth is that small, consistent, and conscious choices accumulate over time to produce monumental outcomes. The quality of the food consumed, the frequency and type of physical movement undertaken, and the efficacy with which daily stress is managed all play an inextricably linked and pivotal role in determining whether the heart remains robust and resilient or gradually succumbs to failure. If there is one singular message to internalize from this discussion on heart health, it is this: individuals possess far more inherent power and agency over their cardiac well-being than they commonly believe. The deliberate choices made today hold the profound capacity to dictate the sustained strength and health of one's heart for all the years that lie ahead. And the optimal moment to commence this vital process of protection is, unequivocally, right now. Moving beyond internal organ health, one of the most acutely dangerous yet frequently overlooked risks that profoundly impacts individuals after the age of 75 is not a complex disease, but rather the seemingly innocuous event of a fall. It transpires in a mere fraction of a second. A single misstep, a fleeting moment of dizziness, an unseen patch of slippery flooring, and in that instant, the entire trajectory of life can be irrevocably altered. What might appear as a relatively minor incident, such as a fractured hip, a concussion, or other head injury, or even a superficially insignificant bruise, possesses the alarming potential to rapidly spiral into a grave, debilitating, and ultimately life-threatening medical emergency. The true danger lies in a profound lack of awareness. Most individuals do not genuinely comprehend their inherent vulnerability to falls until they or someone intimately connected to them experiences such an event firsthand, often when it is already too late to prevent the initial harm. The statistics are indeed shocking. Falls stand as one of the leading causes of injury-related deaths among the senior population. They are directly responsible for millions of emergency room visits annually across the globe, and for a significant proportion of those affected, a solitary fall initiates a cascading decline in health and independence from which they never fully recover. A hip fracture, for instance, can condemn an individual to months of bed rest, precipitate a devastating loss of personal independence, and dramatically elevate the risk of developing severe infections and other life-threatening complications. Yet, despite the alarming commonality and severe consequences of falls, the proactive prevention of such incidents is typically not afforded the serious attention it merits until an individual or a cherished loved one endures the traumatic experience themselves. The underlying physiological challenge is that as humans age, our intricate sense of balance, fundamental muscle strength, and critical reaction time progressively diminish. Because this decline unfolds so gradually and incrementally over many years, these subtle changes often go largely unnoticed. One might feel perfectly confident and steady navigating their own home, performing routine daily tasks, but then, without warning, reach for an object, experience a sudden loss of equilibrium, and gravity inexorably takes over. The aging body simply does not possess the same inherent capacity for recovery it once did in youth, and what would previously have been a minor stumble can now result in truly devastating and life-altering injuries. Further exacerbating this predicament is a psychological phenomenon. The very fear of falling can paradoxically lead to an increased incidence of falls. Many seniors, after enduring one or more close calls, begin to instinctively avoid movement altogether. They cease their regular walks, meticulously avoid stairs, and severely curtail their overall physical activity out of a profound and understandable fear of experiencing another fall. However, this self-imposed immobility initiates a vicious cycle. The less one moves, the more rapidly their muscles atrophy and weaken. And critically, the weaker their muscles become, the greater their statistical likelihood of suffering another fall. This detrimental loop can swiftly and cruelly strip individuals of their cherished independence and significantly degrade their quality of life. The immensely positive news, however, is that falls are absolutely not an inevitable component of aging. In fact, there exist numerous simple yet extraordinarily powerful and effective strategies to drastically reduce one's risk. Concentrated efforts to strengthen the leg muscles and core, engaging in targeted balance improvement exercises, and implementing seemingly minor but impactful adjustments within the home environment, such as ensuring adequate and bright lighting, utilizing slip-proof rugs or removing tripping hazards entirely, and installing sturdy handrails where appropriate, can represent the decisive factor between sustaining an active, independent lifestyle and facing a truly life-changing injury. Another frequently overlooked factor contributing to falls is the unintended side effects of various medications. Numerous prescription drugs can induce dizziness, cause drowsiness, or precipitate sudden fluctuations in blood pressure, all of which substantially increase the probability of losing one's balance and falling. If one has ever experienced that brief moment of lightheadedness upon standing up too quickly, that sensation serves as the body's subtle yet crucial warning signal that something potentially needs adjustment. Engaging in open and honest dialogue with one's physician about all current medications, ensuring that they are not inadvertently contributing to instability, and maintaining a heightened awareness of how these pharmacological agents might impact balance can be a literal lifesaver. Preventing falls transcends merely avoiding physical obstacles. It fundamentally involves cultivating and maintaining physical strength, ensuring steady gait and posture, and remaining acutely aware of the myriad subtle elements that can collectively make an enormous difference in safety and stability. Because after 75, a single fall possesses the power to fundamentally alter everything. Taking diligent and appropriate precautions today can safeguard years of continued mobility, preserve precious independence, and ensure a significantly higher quality of life. The seemingly automatic act of breathing is something universally taken for granted until it transforms into a labored and agonizing struggle. As individuals advance in age, the efficiency and capacity of their lungs naturally diminish, meaning that even comparatively minor respiratory issues can escalate into severe and life-threatening conditions with alarming rapidity. What might initially manifest as a simple, persistent cough or a mild shortness of breath can, in an older adult, swiftly progress to chronic and debilitating lung conditions, severe infections, and necessitate emergency hospitalization. Tragically, after the age of 75, respiratory diseases ascend to become one of the leading causes of death, not predominantly because they are intrinsically unavoidable, but often because their early warning signs are dismissed or ignored until the body's reserves are critically depleted. One of the most significant and insidious dangers in this category is chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, or COPD. an umbrella term encompassing debilitating conditions such as emphysema and chronic bronchitis. Over years of exposure to irritants, the delicate airways within the lungs become progressively inflamed, obstructed, and damaged, rendering the act of breathing an increasingly arduous and agonizing effort. Many seniors, unfortunately, tend to brush off persistent symptoms such as frequent coughing, an audible wheezing sound during exhalation, or a persistent sensation of breathlessness, mistakenly assuming these are simply normal parts of the aging process. In a critical divergence from this perception, however, these are in fact potent and urgent warning signs, unequivocally indicating that the lungs are in distress and require immediate medical attention. Furthermore, there is the ever-present threat of pneumonia. While it might be perceived as just another common infection, for older adults, pneumonia poses a vastly greater and more existential threat. What could begin as a relatively benign cold or mild chest congestion can, in a weakened older immune system, rapidly evolve into a severe, life-threatening condition because the body's innate capacity to vigorously combat aggressive infections significantly wanes with advancing age. A substantial proportion of hospitalizations among individuals over 75 years old are directly attributable to pneumonia, and in an alarmingly high number of these cases, the severe infection triggers a precipitous and often irreversible decline in overall health, from which some individuals tragically never fully recover. Another major risk factor that silently impacts lung health is prolonged exposure to poor air quality. Throughout a lifetime, the cumulative exposure to airborne dust particles, environmental pollution, and crucially, secondhand tobacco smoke, inexorably takes its toll on the delicate tissues of the lungs, leading to chronic irritation and damage. Even within the confines of one's own home, insidious elements such as mold spores, pet dander, and a variety of indoor chemical pollutants can significantly exacerbate existing breathing difficulties without the individual even realizing the source of their discomfort. For those already grappling with pre-existing conditions like asthma or COPD, these environmental irritants intensify symptoms, making daily life a constant challenge. Making seemingly minor yet impactful adjustments, such as consistently improving indoor air quality through proper ventilation, utilizing high-efficiency air purifiers, or scrupulously avoiding all forms of smoke exposure, can profoundly protect the lungs from further harm. One of the simplest yet most remarkably effective strategies to maintain robust lung strength and function is to consistently engage in physical activity. Many people do not fully grasp that the lungs, much like any other vital organ or muscle group in the body, require regular exercise to operate at peak efficiency. When one moves their body, the lungs expand more fully and deeply, which not only keeps them healthy and pliable, but also actively aids in clearing out accumulated mucus and irritants. Conversely, when individuals lead predominantly sedentary lives and sit for prolonged periods, their lungs are not compelled to work as vigorously, rendering them considerably more susceptible to infections and a gradual weakening of lung function over time. Even gentle activities like daily walking or stretching can substantially contribute to keeping the lungs stronger and more functional for a longer duration. A further absolutely crucial factor in respiratory health is ensuring the timely administration of appropriate vaccinations. Many seniors unfortunately underestimate the critical importance of vaccines specifically designed to protect against pneumonia, influenza, and other prevalent respiratory illnesses. Yet these remarkably simple and safe preventive measures can dramatically reduce the risk of contracting severe infections and experiencing their dire complications. It transcends merely avoiding an uncomfortable cold. It is fundamentally about preempting severe complications that could necessitate hospitalization, or in the worst-case scenario, prove fatal. A small proactive step, like staying consistently up to date on recommended vaccinations, can genuinely represent the stark difference between a mild, manageable illness and a life-threatening health crisis. The act of breathing should never feel like an arduous struggle, but for a distressing number of individuals over 75, it often does. Not because it is an unavoidable fate, but primarily because they fail to take decisive action early enough. The lungs are with every individual every second of every day, performing the tireless, life-sustaining work of respiration. Therefore, diligently caring for them, strengthening their capacity, and rigorously protecting them from infection stands as one of the most profoundly impactful actions one can undertake to extend both their physical health span and their cherished independence. A stroke, in its terrifying reality, manifests suddenly and often without any discernible prior warning. In a single devastating instant, life as one knows it can be irrevocably altered forever. This catastrophic neurological event stands as one of the leading causes of death for those beyond the age of 75, yet a significant portion of the population remains astonishingly unaware of the multitude of early warning signs and crucial risk factors that are, in fact, well within their capacity to manage and control. The inherent tragedy of a stroke is its often uncompromising nature. Once it occurs, the resulting neurological damage is frequently permanent, leaving indelible marks on physical and cognitive function. However, a profoundly empowering statistic often goes unnoticed. Up to 80% of all strokes are considered entirely preventable. This astonishing fact underscores the immense power of personal agency, meaning that the conscious, deliberate choices made today possess the incredible potential to determine whether one sustains their cherished independence or is tragically afflicted by a life-altering medical emergency. A stroke fundamentally transpires when the vital blood flow to a specific region of the brain is abruptly interrupted, or in a less common but equally devastating scenario, when a blood vessel within the brain ruptures. When brain cells are deprived of their essential supply of oxygen-rich blood, they begin to perish within mere minutes. The longer the brain endures this deprivation, the more extensive and severe the resulting damage. Some strokes can be comparatively minor, resulting in only transient confusion or a slight, temporary weakness. But others inflict profound and devastating consequences, leaving individuals paralyzed, rendered unable to communicate effectively, or completely dependent on others for even the most basic daily needs. In an alarmingly high number of instances, a stroke proves to be definitively fatal. One of the most pervasive and dangerous risk factors for stroke is chronic high blood pressure. Over many years, excessive pressure exerted against the arterial walls weakens their structural integrity, making them significantly more prone to either rupturing catastrophically or becoming completely blocked by plaque and clots. And echoing its role in heart disease, high blood pressure often presents with no overt symptoms, earning its moniker as a silent killer. This explains why so many individuals walk through life completely oblivious to their elevated risk until a stroke strikes with brutal suddenness. Another significant contributor to stroke risk is the presence of irregular heart rhythms, particularly a condition known as atrial fibrillation, or AFib. Many seniors experience this cardiac arrhythmia without ever realizing it, as symptoms can be subtle or non-existent. When the heart beats erratically and inefficiently, blood can pool and stagnate within the atria, creating an environment conducive to the formation of blood clots. If one of these dangerous clots dislodges and travels from the heart up to the brain, it can instantly cause a devastating stroke. The encouraging news, however, is that a simple medical checkup, including an electrocardiogram, can detect these cardiac rhythm irregularities early, and timely medical treatment, often involving anticoagulants, can dramatically reduce the risk of stroke. Furthermore, dietary habits and overall lifestyle choices play an undeniably crucial role. Consuming excessive quantities of highly processed foods, a high intake of sodium, and unhealthy fats increases the likelihood of developing strokes by promoting inflammation and hardening of the arteries. Concurrently, a sedentary lifestyle characterized by a lack of physical movement allows the blood to thicken and overall circulation to sluggishly slow down, further increasing clot risk. The most effective approach to substantially reduce one's stroke risk involves consistently maintaining an active lifestyle, diligently consuming a diet rich in nutrient-dense foods, and vigilantly maintaining healthy blood pressure levels. Even seemingly minor modifications, such as incorporating more leafy green vegetables into daily meals, consciously reducing sodium intake, and ensuring adequate hydration through increased water consumption, can yield profoundly positive differences in stroke prevention. One critically important aspect that frequently goes overlooked is the phenomenon of mini-strokes, technically known as transient ischemic attacks, or TIAs. These are fleeting episodes of stroke-like symptoms that typically resolve within a few minutes or hours, often without causing permanent brain damage. However, dismissing a TIA as a temporary event is a perilous mistake. They are, in essence, powerful warning shots, serving as a strong predictor of a future, potentially more severe, stroke. If one experiences any sudden, unexplained symptoms, such as temporary weakness or numbness on one side of the body, difficulty speaking or understanding speech, sudden vision loss in one eye or acute confusion, even if these symptoms quickly subside, it is absolutely imperative not to ignore them. Seeking immediate medical attention could genuinely mean the decisive difference between preventing a full-blown stroke and suffering its devastating and irreversible consequences. The most salient point to internalize regarding stroke is this: every individual possesses the tangible power to significantly reduce their personal stroke risk. Regularly monitoring blood pressure, adhering to a heart-healthy and balanced diet, consistently staying physically active, and crucially, learning to recognize and promptly respond to the early warning signs of a stroke, or TIA, can collectively help one preserve their independence and avert the life-altering effects of this formidable medical event. The sooner proactive action is initiated, the greater the chances of effectively protecting oneself and ensuring a healthier, more vibrant future. Among the most profoundly heartbreaking and insidious realities of the aging process is the gradual, often imperceptible erosion of memory, the decline in reasoning capabilities, and the eventual loss of personal independence, collectively referred to as cognitive decline. This decline does not typically manifest overnight in a sudden, dramatic fashion. Rather, it subtly creeps in, initiating with minor alterations that are, in the initial stages, all too easy to dismiss as mere attributes of getting older. However, as the years inexorably pass, those seemingly insignificant lapses in memory or judgment incrementally transform into something far more serious and pervasive. The fundamental ability to competently manage daily tasks, to consistently recognize familiar faces and names, or to confidently make sound and rational decisions progressively begins to fade. For a significant portion of those affected, this is not merely an inconvenience. It tragically evolves into a life-threatening predicament. Dementia and Alzheimer's disease, the most common forms of severe cognitive decline, do not exclusively impact the mind. They tragically place the entire physical body at profound risk. As cognitive function progressively diminishes, so too does an individual's crucial capacity to competently care for their own health and well-being. Simple yet vital tasks, such as reliably remembering to take prescribed medications on schedule, consistently consuming balanced and nutritious meals, or accurately recognizing and reporting symptoms of an emerging illness, become increasingly difficult, confusing, and often neglected. Many seniors afflicted with dementia may simply forget to drink sufficient water, leading to dangerous levels of dehydration that can precipitate other health crises. Others might consume too little or too much food, resulting in severe nutritional deficiencies or unhealthy weight gain that, in turn, amplifies their risk of developing other serious medical conditions. However, one of the most perilous dangers stemming from cognitive decline is a dramatic increase in the incidence of accidents. Forgetting to turn off the stove after cooking, inadvertently leaving the front door unlocked and ajar at night, or wandering away from a safe environment into potentially hazardous conditions. These are all significant risks that can become tragically deadly as cognitive decline steadily progresses. For an alarming number of seniors, this trajectory ultimately leads to the deeply tragic reality of losing their long-cherished independence. They may reach a point where they are no longer able to reside safely and autonomously in their own homes, and without the provision of appropriate and consistent care, their overall health can deteriorate at an even more accelerated pace. The most frightening aspect of cognitive decline is that many individuals do not even realize they are experiencing its onset until it has already advanced to a more significant stage. Early warning signs, such as consistently forgetting names, struggling to follow the thread of complex conversations, or repeatedly misplacing important personal items, are often casually dismissed as simply being a normal part of getting older. In reality, however, these seemingly minor signals are the brain's subtle yet urgent way of indicating that fundamental changes are indeed occurring. The sooner proactive action is taken, the significantly better the chances of potentially slowing the progression of decline and maintaining a sharp, healthy mind for many years to come. One of the most effective and accessible strategies to robustly protect the brain's vitality is to consistently engage in mental activity. Just like the muscles in the body, the brain requires regular exercise to remain strong, agile, and resilient. Engaging in activities such as reading stimulating books, actively learning new skills or languages, meticulously solving puzzles and brain teasers, or even participating in deep, intellectually challenging conversations, all serve to keep the brain actively engaged and significantly reduce the risk of cognitive decline by promoting neuroplasticity and building cognitive reserve. Furthermore, a crucial insight often overlooked by many is that physical exercise is every bit as vital for optimal brain health as mental activity. Movement enhances blood flow to the brain, which in turn helps to protect memory functions and overall cognitive processing. Another fundamental factor critical for brain health is regular social interaction. Studies have consistently shown that isolation and profound loneliness dramatically accelerate mental decline. Actively engaging in regular conversations, meeting consistently with friends and family, and staying meaningfully engaged with one's community can quite literally help to keep the brain sharper and more resilient for a longer duration. The more one challenges their mind with novel experiences, diverse information, and meaningful interpersonal interactions, the more robust and adaptable it becomes. And unequivocally, dietary choices play a major and direct role in brain health. Specific nutrients such as omega-3 fatty acids, a wide array of antioxidants, and essential vitamins found abundantly in foods like leafy green vegetables, various berries, and nuts, all contribute powerfully to protecting against cognitive decline by supporting neuronal function and reducing inflammation. Conversely, a diet heavily laden with processed foods, excessive sugars, and unhealthy fats contributes to chronic inflammation within the brain, thereby significantly increasing the risk of developing dementia. A truly healthy brain unequivocally begins with a healthy body, and the deliberate dietary choices made today possess the profound capacity to shape how effectively one thinks, remembers, and functions in the years and decades ahead. The loss of cognitive function is by no means an inevitable and unavoidable aspect of aging. By proactively taking the right steps now, consistently keeping the mind and body active, staying meaningfully socially engaged, and making intelligent, health-conscious dietary choices, individuals can significantly reduce their risk of decline. The brain, much like any other integral part of the human body, thrives on care and attention. The more diligently it is nurtured, the stronger and more capable it will remain. As this comprehensive exploration concludes, it is paramount to reflect upon the critical insights uncovered. Heart disease, the dangers of falls and injuries, the challenges of respiratory diseases, the devastating impact of stroke, and the pervasive threat of cognitive decline and its related complications. These 5 primary causes collectively account for nearly all deaths observed after the age of 75. However, the most vital and empowering message to internalize is that these conditions are fundamentally not inevitable. A profound reality exists that most people remain unaware of the immense degree of control and influence they genuinely possess over their own long-term health and well-being. Tragically, by the time this realization dawns, it is often too late to effect significant change. The undeniable truth is that small, consistent, and conscious choices, initiated starting today, possess the extraordinary capacity to add not just years, but years filled with sustained strength, mental clarity, and precious independence to one's life. No one naturally relishes the thought of aging or contemplating its potential challenges, but choosing to ignore these scientifically established risks does not, in any way, make them disappear. The immensely encouraging news is that awareness itself confers profound power. Possessing the knowledge of these critical warning signs, proactively taking preventive measures, and making one's health an unwavering priority means that it is entirely possible to navigate the years ahead. Not in fear, but with confidence and proactive intent. Instead of dwelling on potential limitations, individuals can consciously shift their focus toward achieving true longevity, cultivating sustained strength, and ultimately enjoying life to its absolute fullest potential. Take a moment now to genuinely reflect on your own daily habits and routines. Are there specific areas where even minor, incremental improvements could be made? Perhaps it involves making more consistently healthier dietary choices, incorporating more regular physical movement into your day, scheduling and attending regular medical checkups, or actively striving to remain more socially and mentally engaged. Whatever the identified area, remember this profound truth. There is no imperative to overhaul everything simultaneously. Even a single, small but deliberate step in the right direction can set you firmly on a transformative path toward better health and a longer, richer, and more fulfilling life. At this pivotal stage in life, your well-being stands as your most invaluable and irreplaceable asset. The more diligently and thoughtfully you protect it, the more abundantly you will be able to cherish time spent with loved ones, maintain your cherished independence, and live without the pervasive fear of preventable health issues. Every single day presents a renewed opportunity to consciously take care of yourself, and the considered choices made today possess the ultimate power to determine how strong, capable, and vibrant you will remain in the numerous years that lie ahead.